I was really open in asking what I call my heavenly team, which is God, Jesus, and my angels and guides were there and started teaching me about love. And it's just kept unfolding and uncovering over the years to where I know that love is our greatest power. Love is our greatest shield against dark energy. When we have beliefs, when we're filled with love, our beliefs are going to be aligned with truth. And our emotions are going to empower us towards actions that feel more peaceful, that feel empowering, and we're able to receive that inspiration that helps us know step by step how to move through our lives or how to handle difficult situations, or just really understanding the truth that we are all divine beings of light, of infinite worth and value, and there is nothing that we can do that makes us less than anybody else.
Welcome to the Light the Day podcast, where we explore spiritually transformative experiences. I'm your host, Julie Clough, and I want to remind you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to the show. If you're on YouTube, hit that little bell. That will let you know when new episodes come out, generally every Thursday with some little snippets in between. So we're thrilled that you're here. If you comment and below, that helps too, because it helps us to um, helps our helps our guests feel welcomed. And if you have questions, add that to the comments as well. But today I'm really super excited to introduce you to my friend Janette VanLeer. Hi, Janette.
Hello, Julie. I'm so thrilled to be here. So honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to do this interview with you today. So before we get started, tell us just a little bit about yourself. Give us a little introduction.
So I have been doing energy work since 2011. I am a transformation code and energy practitioner, and then I teach people how to do energy work. And, it's something I never in a million years thought that I would be doing, but I was just led to it through kind of a transformative experience.
Oh, that's fabulous. So we're going to dig into that. We're trying to find out all about that. So take us back. Share a little bit of the before story before we go into that transformative experience that you've had.
So, Julie, my history is 22 years of depression, and that depression showed up as anger and yelling because I never felt enough. I was always in overwhelm, and I had two children with ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder who didn't want to obey me. My whole self-worth was wrapped up in having children that would get good grades and make their teacher happy and, do what I asked. And of course, that doesn't happen. And that just created not enough, which created depression. And about 15 years into my marriage, I found out the only reason my husband hadn't asked for a divorce is that he didn't want to put his children through a divorce.
Mm,
Um, because he had his parents had gotten divorced, and that was a big wake-up call for me. I knew I needed to change, but I didn't know how. An interesting thing that I learned about the yelling tirades that I would go into is that it was actually a dopamine fix for me. My
mm,
dopamine was so low because of the depression that my body knew that if I would start yelling, it would produce dopamine. And I would wake up every morning saying, I am not going to yell at these kids today. I'm not going to shred them. I just, you wake up with that guilt and that shame because it's not okay. And then they would do something and just I couldn't even stop myself and would just go on this yelling tirade. And now, fast forward to learning about energy work and learning about love. And the reality of it is, Julie, in a nutshell, what I've learned is that there's two basic states of being. We are either in a state of love or we're a state of being in fear. And I say being in fear because if we go back to before we had our earthly bodies, our earthly spirits, our true, authentic, divine self is love. That's who we are. That's where we came from. That's the energy that we resonated in. And, then we come to this earthly experience that has duality. And, there's a universal law of polarity that says there has to be opposites of everything. So if there's hot, there has to be cold. And if there's light, there gets to be darkness. And, the opposite of love is fear. And so we have this duality that we deal with in our humanness, and fear takes us out of our power. There's I don't there's a thing called a tear cycle that a lot of people are familiar with, that your thoughts create your emotions create your actions create the results that you get in your life. But what creates your thoughts? Well, it's your beliefs. And when your beliefs are aligned with true principles, then that will create empowering thoughts that then create emotions that then motivate you to take actions, to take inspired action, because it's love that connects us to our inspiration, to our angels, to our guides, that can inspire and empower us to help us create the results that we want. But I was living in so much fear and so much of not enough and feeling less than and shame, which is the lowest vibrational emotion that we can feel, and creating all of those emotions. And then my actions, were yelling and controlling and just knowing that life just felt so out of control. And the results were children that were failing school, a marriage that was failing, and, life was just a train wreck.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine, I mean, it's super painful. And I know there's probably people listening right now who are dealing with depression. It is definitely an issue that so many people deal with. So I imagine it wasn't just like you woke up one day and like everything was rainbows and daisies and all of that. So what was that kind of, and you talked about how you found out that your husband was unhappy and that it's such a like depression when we feel badly about ourselves, whether, even if we don't call it depression necessarily, but when we feel badly about ourselves or we're dealing with depression, whether that's clinical or whether that's just a state of our being, that's just one of the hardest things because you don't, it lacks the energy to make change, to make positive change, because it's such a low energy state. So tell us a little bit about what happened from there. Like what were some of those smaller steps? What were some of the bigger things that happened that created a transformation for you?
Well, there were two pivoting events. One of them was I had a sister. I had learned about energy work, and I had started massage school where I was learning about massage and energy work. And I went on a vacation with one of my sisters who's 16 years older than I am. And during massage school, part of the curriculum was we had to do so many hours of practice massage outside. And so while we were on this vacation, I asked her if I could, give her a massage to practice with. And of course, she was all about that.
Everybody
And
needs a family member who's a massage therapist.
exactly. So after that, we're laying on the bed talking, and all of a sudden, we were laying down, and all of a sudden, she props up on her arm and looks me in the eye and says, Janette, what I'm about to tell you, I'm going to tell you with love. And my heart just went, oh, wow, what's coming? And she told me that if I had any hope of building a business, that I needed to change my hair, change my wardrobe, and just all of these things that I needed to change if I had any hope of clients coming to see me. And of course, I just left there feeling shredded and just
Mm.
devastated. And for 2 days, I just was spinning and just in a very, very low place. And I was getting to the point of, I hate my sister and don't care if I ever see her again.
Well, even that comment kind of confirmed what you're already feeling. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not good enough. I'm not enough. The way I look, the way I act, the way I show up in the world isn't enough.
Yeah. Totally a trigger,
Yeah, for
She,
sure.
I believe she had good intentions, but yeah, totally triggered me. And so I finally got down on my knees and I prayed. I says, Heavenly Father, I am so tired of feeling broken. How can I feel whole? And immediately I had this realization, and it was really the first intuitive experience I think I ever had, that this is how you've been making your son, my second son, who um, was oppositionally defiant, and he has been my biggest teacher. I am so grateful for him. But he was really hard and he could never do anything right. And I was always yelling at him and mad at him. And he said, this is how you've been making your son feel his whole entire life.
Mm,
And it just hit me just in my heart so hard. And I just felt terrible. And I got out the scriptures and the next day and was led to a scripture that said, unless ye have charity, ye are nothing. And I went, I'm so tired of feeling like nothing. I better figure out what charity really is. And in there it said that charity is the pure love of Christ. And so I actually went down the next day to this son and sat down with him and I said, I am so sorry that
mm,
I have made you feel this way. And that was the first heart to heart talk. He was 16 years old. It was the first heart to heart talk we'd ever had.
wow.
And from then, we were able to start rebuilding our relationship. And I knew that I needed to learn how to love because I grew up in a home that was very religious. And if you fit in this religious box and were doing all of the things, you were accepted. But the minute you stepped outside of that box, you got rejected to the point that two of my siblings actually got sent away to live with other people. And so I learned that if I didn't want to be sent away, that I had to make my dad happy and make sure that I was doing the things that would cause him to accept me. And what I learned from that the very next day, a meme, this was before Facebook, came into my email that said, um, unless, uh, it was a quote by Mother Teresa that says, when you are in the judgment of others, there's no room to love them.
Mhm.
And I realized, I mean, just quickly, another intuitive moment that I was in such judgment of myself that I couldn't love myself. And so that was all that was coming out of me towards my family and
Mm,
what they were feeling from me. And then, a couple of days later, another meme came that says, there's no such thing as unconditional love. You either have love or you have conditions.
wow.
And so the minute I just feel like the minute I was really open and asking what I call my heavenly team, which is God, Jesus, and my angels and guides, were there and started teaching me about love. And it's just kept unfolding and uncovering over the years to where I know that love is our greatest power. Love is our greatest shield against dark energy. When we have beliefs, when we're filled with love, our beliefs are going to be aligned with truth. And our emotions are going to empower us towards actions that feel more peaceful, that feel empowering, and we're able to receive that inspiration that helps us know step by step how to move through our lives or how to handle difficult situations or um, just really understanding the truth that we are all divine beings of light, of infinite worth and value. And there is nothing that we can do that makes us less than anybody else.
Yeah,
Anybody
for
else.
sure. For sure. And I know this was years ago that this happened, and you can just feel the impact that these moments had on you as you share them. And you think about like I am, I imagine you can see and you can remember exactly where you were sitting, exactly what you were doing when these ideas, these new concepts, these new things like landed in your sight. It's one of those things, and I'm sure that you can appreciate this. I'm sure if you're listening, you can appreciate this idea that there's just certain things that like catch our attention, like these quotes that you just mentioned, like these scriptures you just mentioned. They catch our attention and they just come with an extra force of energy, of feeling, like they're divine messages, not just things that are just showing up randomly. So fascinating.
Well, they're really those pivotal, life-changing, life-altering moments that, yeah, and I feel like they happen in the moments that we're open and that we're asking because God wants to help us be our very best, most powerful selves. And, we all have contracts and things that we're here to learn and how we're meant to grow. And like I said, this son has been my greatest teacher. I fully believe that we had a contract to break the generational chain of this acceptance rejection cycle within my family. And, when you have a child that's rarely, if ever, does anything that you want them to do, you have to learn how to unconditionally love them because you can't love them because you're proud of what they're doing or, they're making you happy. And, you know, when I learned this, I knew that I learned that, gratitude is the game changer. And it was another download that says you need to turn this around in your family, in your marriage, with your children. You need to get out a notebook and create a page for each member of your family, including yourself, and then write three things, good things about them every single day. And with this child, it was, he tied his shoes today. I mean, it just, it started out so small. He remembered to turn off the light. He zipped up his zipper. He constantly would be in such a hurry, he wouldn't even remember to do up a zipper half the time. But then as I started tuning into those things, because, if I had to write something down, I had to quit focusing on all the things that were making me mad and angry that I didn't like and find something that I did. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, this child has a sense of humor. He is funny. And he has a really tender heart. And it makes me sad that he was 16 years old before I even knew that about him.
Mm,
And and then, things just kept unraveling. And there's a saying that life doesn't happen to us, life happens for us.
mhm,
And I can just see how life happened for me and how this child, and all my children, but particularly him, created this situation where I had to learn about love, is really do or die. My family was going to be destroyed. My children were all struggling and so you have this motivation and then you can be taught and you can be inspired and then I found energy work and I learned about, I just started coaching. I haven't had any formal training, but I've just kind of had a natural affinity to be a coach and for the energy work. And And just the spiritual gifts started to develop and unfold as I got connected to love and opened up that channel to really tune into who I really am and what I'm here to do. And that's
Yeah.
something that I am just passionate about helping other people do now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I want to ask you about, because you've kind of alluded to it a few times, but I would love to hear what your thoughts and feelings and ideas are around a soul plan. What do you have any thoughts about that? Because you've talked about like the contract with your son before you came and so forth. I'm just curious what your thoughts are about the soul plan.
I feel like before we come to Earth, that we have a council of beings that we sit down with and talk about what we want to experience. I fully know that we have past lives, and we might take some learnings that we've had from a past life, and we want to, to take where we're at, and we want to grow from there. And that, so I envision this son, for instance, sitting down, and I say, I really want to learn how to love. I really want to really learn in this lifetime what love really is and how to be love. And I want to then teach other people how to love. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to come and I'm going to get in lots of trouble. And, you know, he had just gotten out of being state mandated to be in a juvenile, it was like a rehab place for 6 months, removed from the home, which again was another divine thing because one, rehab can be 50 to $100,000. Well, because it was mandated by the state and he wasn't 18 yet, the state paid for it.
Hmm.
And it gave us a 6 month break where I could dive into myself and decide, start learning these things and start these things unfolding. And then, the incident with my sister was just perfect right at the time that he came back into our home. And so I could see what my mistakes were and we could start creating a relationship. And of course, he had his own learning experiences in that group home that, detentional home that he was in. And I just see how it all was divinely orchestrated to
Yeah.
to play out, even though it was a very painful time.
Yeah. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts around that. The other thing that I'm wondering for those, you've talked about energy work. For those who aren't familiar with energy work, there may be many people who are listening who are very familiar with it, others who are not. What's your definition of energy work, or what is energy work as you see it?
Well, for me, the way that I teach it is again, when we can tune into so when I sit down with someone, I do an energy diagnostic with them. I see we all vibrate whatever emotions and beliefs we're filled with. If they're fear-based, we're going to be at a lower vibration. If they're love-based, we're going to be at a higher vibration. And so I will muscle test, where their light vibrations at. What percent are they in love versus fear? Because, we can be in 80% love, then 20% fear, right? And then it's diving into, well, what's creating that 20%, because that 20% is taking them out of their power, out of their truth. And typically that's why they're coming to see me. That's the cause of their pain. And then from there, I can tune into the trapped emotions and the limiting beliefs that a lot of times are generational, like mine was generational on my father's side. And you just unravel those limiting beliefs and the emotions that they're creating and the traumas and all of that heavy energy. And as you help someone understand that and where it came from at the very root of where it started, so it could be generational, it could be from an experience that they had when they were 5. So, for instance, when I was 5, my mom was really sick when I was born and couldn't take care of me the first year of my life. And so, my sister And women of my church, well, my sister was 16 at the time. And so while she was in school, women of my church I would be passed around and they would take care of me. And then she would pick me up, and after school, she says I ruined her senior year of high school.
Mhm.
And then she would be responsible for me. Well, then when I was 5, she got married. So she was like my mom because my mom
Mhm.
was very disconnected, very sick. And then she got married and just abandoned me, you know? And I had all of these beliefs that were creating to this not enough and this low self-worth that span back to this instance when I was 5. So
Mhm.
being able to tune into that and start unraveling that understanding helped me to understand why I was feeling the way, why I was acting. It helped me to start being able to forgive myself. And then you also will take those limiting beliefs and find what I call a free frame. And that's really aligning, getting realigned with universal truths and, correct beliefs. But these are beliefs that a universal truth is something that even God has to obey. There's universal laws that God used to create the earth. And so a universal law is something that everyone on this earth is subject to, whether you understand them or not. And when you're in alignment with the universal laws, life isn't perfect because we're meant to have challenges and things, but life's going to be a lot more free flowing and moving forward and more abundant when you're in alignment with the laws that make up our universe. And when
Yeah.
you're fighting against those laws, then, that's, I mean, that's just when the struggle and the heartache and the just feel like, no matter what you do, life is just constantly throwing you curveballs. And I don't want to make it sound like that, if you're having hard things happen, it's because you're out of alignment. I mean, like I say, my having my son, that was hard was part of my contract. But
Right.
there were also other laws that I was way out of alignment with that were destroying my marriage and causing me to just feel really stuck, overwhelmed, not enough. And I would just constantly be spinning, in these negative emotions that then created depression.
Yeah. As you were talking about that, what it felt like is obviously if we walked around every day carrying sandbags, physically that would be really, really challenging. And it's like we may be carrying these energetic, invisible sandbags and around with us and not even be aware, like, energetically at this other level. And as we let go of some of that, then everything starts to flow and starts to, like, we're just like physically, we're so much more able to respond and, you know, get to the mailbox and get back from the mailbox or, run down the street or whatever it is we want to do if we're not carrying a bunch of sandbags. But energetically, same type of thing. We're not carrying so much of that heavy energy.
Well, it's interesting that you would use that. When I teach energy work, one of the processes I use is a hot air balloon. And so a hot air balloon has, ropes that tie it down and keep it to the ground, and it also has sandbags. And so I compare the limiting beliefs to those ropes that are tying it down. And I can tell when I have identified and helped pull up all the pegs of those ropes because then I can feel the energy rising within the person. And then the trapped emotions are the sandbags. And so just getting rid of the limiting beliefs, the vibration, the hot air balloon will rise. And then depending on, you can let go of the sandbags and that will make the hot air balloon rise higher and higher. And, as we can shift out of those limiting beliefs and the trapped emotions, then, our vibration raises. But that's where energy work comes in again because, 11 years in, I'm not perfect. I still wake up with fears. I still have limiting beliefs. That's something that in our humanness is something that's always going to be happening. But what's different now is I get up, I meet with what I call my heavenly team, and it's like, okay, what are my fears? Well, I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of this, and I'm afraid of this. And then, I can get out my transformation code manual and identify the beliefs and the trapped emotions that are creating them. And then I can find the reframe that my heavenly team leads me to, that then shifts me and helps me get out of fear and realign with love. And then I can go into my day feeling empowered and inspired and work with my clients. Because obviously, if I'm in fear, I'm not going to be doing anybody any good, myself or anyone else. And so it's a daily practice. I used to think when I got into energy work, someday I'll just get all this cleared and I'll be perfect and life will be grand. And really what it is it's just a tool to help us continually, release and, clear out our stuff and get aligned so that we can move forward, do what we're on this earth to do, create the impact that we're here to make, and, make a difference, whether it's with just within our homes or maybe a community, or, there are those leaders who are global.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, it's so good. So good. And this idea, you know, energy, it's just like air. We need it, we breathe it, but we can't see it. We can sometimes feel it. Like right now I'm cold because the air in my office at this moment is a little chilly. So I'm feeling the air, I'm feeling the impact of the air. And that's kind of how I think about energy. And as you're talking, it's like there's something about the power of our intention. It's so it's so interesting because like if I, physically, like our spirit, on the other side, we think something, we're there, right? Without the body. But with the
Hmm.
physical body, if we think something like, oh, it's time for lunch, I'm going to go in and I'm going to fix lunch. We have to walk into the kitchen and we have to pull the stuff out of the fridge or pull the stuff out of the cabinet. But energetically, we can still use that same power of our spirit with the intention, and we can. I don't even know if any of this is making any sense, but it's like this different thing. It's like there's so much power in our intention, and when you talk about like removing these blocks and removing these things, it's really the power of our intention.
100%. 100. I'm so grateful that you brought that up because within ourselves and our energy field is filled with, it's either, high vibrational energy or low vibrational energy. And I just want to preface this with, you can't feel peace, comfort, joy, gratitude. You need some love to like ignite and fuel those emotions. And conversely, you're not going to feel shame, blame, hate, self-loathing, disappointment without some sort of fear driving those emotions. And
Mm.
so love-based emotions create us on an upward spiral. When fear-based emotions happen, we kind of spiral down. And so at any moment, they've proven that within ourselves is 99.99% just, they say empty space. But, my feeling is it's filled with emotional energy, and it's either going to be love-based or fear-based energy. And through the intention, my cells know who I am. My spirit knows everything about me from this moment backwards. It knows who I am, what I'm here to do.
And I would say even going forward,
Exactly. Exactly. And so
everything is all at once.
100%. And so just setting the intention, I can just say, okay, once my cells, once I understand that energy that's there, I can just ask my body, mind, and spirit to let it go. It's really that simple. And, people want to make it hard, but it's just a matter of allowing. The energy of allowing is such a powerful energy because it's the opposite of resistance. Resistance shuts us down, causes us to play small, restricting. Allowing opens us up to receive. It's interesting that you bring up air because I have the saying that God's love is just like air. It's all around us. We just need to breathe it in.
Hmm. Yeah. Love that so much.
Allow it. It's just an allowing.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. What does your life look like today versus what it looked like 20 years ago when, all this was just like swirling around and heavy and hard?
Well, it's not perfect, but it is a lot better. My husband and I we're empty nesters now, and we enjoy being together. In fact, it was just 3 days ago I got in bed with my husband, and I said, today has been a perfect day. And he's like, really? I said, yeah. We I got to go to work and do what I love and work with people that I love. And you came home from work and we got to eat dinner. And we love to play games. And so while we eat dinner, we play games. We play a game. And then after that, we'll either put a puzzle together or we'll watch something on TV. And we just enjoy being together. And, back in the day, my husband actually bought a karate studio and would go to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, go right to the karate studio until 8 o'clock at night. And I feel like he subconsciously created that because he didn't want to be home.
Yeah. Wow.
And, my kids, they know that I love them. We have a great relationship. I do have a son right now who isn't talking to me, which is a whole different ball of wax story. We used to be really close, but it's interesting even with that, Julie. Instead of just spinning in anger and sadness about that, I know it's in divine order. I know that it's happening for us and not to us for some learning that needs to happen, and that there'll be a point when he's ready to forgive, and we can have that relationship again, and that will actually move our relationship up even from where it was when it happens.
Yeah.
And I just have peace about it. And so,
That's
that's a whole
wonderful.
different space than
Yeah.
what I would have been in prior to this knowing.
Well, I know you really well, and I know how important your family is to you, and I know how much you enjoy your grandkids and your family, and those that are close by, those that come and visit, those that you go to visit. Super fun. I was the I lost my train of thought, which you're not allowed to do when you're the host of a podcast, but that's okay. We're just going to go with it. So this is a question I ask all my guests, and that is, what are some of the spiritual practices that you do on a regular basis that help you stay connected?
So I have a very strong spiritual practice. I don't know how people do life without one. Um, in my mind, and I just taught a class today about learning how to receive guidance and peace from your heavenly team, and I talked about the spiritual practice of meeting with your heavenly team, and I asked them to create a commitment of when they would do that, making an appointment and when they would do that. And this person said, I just am not a morning person. I really have a hard time waiting to get out of bed. And I says, well, if you knew that God and Jesus were in your living room waiting for you at 6:30 in the morning, would you stand them up? And they're like, no, I wouldn't. And that's what I feel like. I wake up excited and I know that they're waiting for me. And I'll sit down and I'll tune into, what am I feeling today? What are my fears today? And I'll write those down and I'll use the process that I have and find out, what emotions they're creating. Sometimes they're emotions that I've taken on as an empath, which is a whole nother subject. Sometimes they're generational, sometimes they're old, sometimes they're fresh. And, what limiting beliefs, if I'm feeling stuck in my business or stuck from moving forward, I'll figure out what limiting beliefs are coming up that are causing that stuckness. And then I have a method of where I can go to my heavenly team and get direct answers and have a two-way conversation with them that, they'll lead me to a reframe and then I can say, well, what about this? And then they'll lead me or I'll be inspired. Just words will come into mind with an answer to that. And if there is anything that I wanted people to know today from watching this is that God, your heavenly team wants to be an integral part of your life. They want to do life in partnership with you, not just be called on when you're don't know how to move forward and you're just absolutely not functioning in your life or you're having a tragedy or some emergency. They want to be your besties. They want to do life with you. They don't want to make all your decisions for you, but they want to help you be your very best, most authentic self. They want to help you progress and become all that you can be. And just, asking them questions, they'll give you powerful answers. They
Yeah.
really, they will. And it's a whole different way of doing life versus waking up every day, dreading the day, you know, waiting for, maybe a vacation or just, the one thing to look forward to, and the rest of the time just surviving life. Living from inspiration versus being in desperation all the time is, I just, it makes me sad that there's people that actually experience that because life is meant to be sweet. And tragedies happen. You know that from your life of losing your two children, your brother to suicide. Challenging, hard, tough things happen. But I'm sure you would even agree that, and you talk about in this your book, Miracles in the Darkness, that God is who helped you get to the other side, and now how you help other people through the grief and give them hope that life can be sweet and good again.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. It's interesting because I think one of the reasons why what I was going to say before didn't come to mind was because we needed that chunk before we talked about what had come to mind. And that is like, as you're kind of talking about like how we make our way through life and kind of that, soul plan and all this, what came to mind is like, you know, we're like in a we're like in a gym. We're like in a workout facility on this earth, and we're meant to lift the weights. But what you do is you help people avoid, so like without the energy work, without the like creating more consciousness in our living, it's like we're in the gym, like going over to lift use a machine or lift weights, but we're running into all of the equipment on the way over, and we're like stubbing our toe here and running into this and breaking our arm over here, and then we finally get to the weights. Like we're gonna lift weights, but we don't have to run into everything in the meantime. Like it clears the way for us to have the experiences that are ours and not have all the extra challenges that we don't need to encounter. I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But then you started talking about like bringing our guides in and bringing that spiritual team in and having that like, conference, if you will, in the morning. And then it brought this whole other image to me of like, okay, like we've cleared out all the extra stuff we don't need to be running into, but we actually have this whole team of um, trainers that are following us, wanting to help, and we're just ignoring them. Or we're asking them for help, and they're spotting, and they're helping us choose the right weights, and they're helping us go to the correct machines, and they're showing us how to do it. Like to me that's like the perfect way to live life, is to bring in all the trainers and lift the weights and create the strength through the experiences that we have, without breaking everything as we're running into the to the equipment, and ignoring the guides that are available to us.
I love this because I'm sure everybody's had that experience of walking into a gym and seeing all the equipment and just feeling completely overwhelmed and not having a clue what to do with it. And you kind of wander around and you kind of look at the diagram and try to figure out how to use the machine, but you're not doing anything effectively. And then you hire a trainer or you take a class, go to one of the classes, and you start gaining knowledge. And the trainer helps you from where you're at, with no judgment of where you're at, and teaches you step by step how to get where you want, and what exercises to do, what machines to use, or what classes to take. And then you have a direction and you can step by step, get stronger. And when you have a strong body, a strong mind, right?
Yeah,
And knowledge creates power. And so
yeah.
that's a beautiful analogy.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us today. I'm sure there's, before we go, if there's other things that you would like to share, but also let us know where we can connect with you, Janette.
Oh, I have a website called transformationenergywork.com. And on that website is a free course that you can go into in an hour called Sharpen Your Intuition. And so you can go in there and get that. And basically, with that course, you're stepping into the gym. And through that course, it will start teaching you about the machines and the things to do to start gaining a stronger relationship with your heavenly team and developing your intuition so that you can receive that guidance from your heavenly team.
I love that so much. Thanks for being with us today, Janette. This has been really, really fun.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. I just love you. I love your show. And just, I am just vibrating right now with the resonance between us. This has just been the most amazing experience ever.
Yeah. Yeah. At some time we'll have to get on and kind of share our journey together, and some of the things that, I found you when I didn't know anything about any of this, really. You were the first, it was the first class I ever took. I had no clue. I think you were kind of looking at me like, how do you not know anything? This was
Not at
feels like
all.
a million years ago. It feels like a million years ago.
That was 2016. I remember.
Yeah.
No, it
Yeah.
was 2018. It was 2018.
2018. That sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah. And then, both of us, like where we're at now, and where we were then. And yeah, it's been an amazing ride. So thanks again.
All right. Thanks so much.